goes on inside a football building, right, Mensch? Like,
yeah,
it's a bubble. You're purposely isolated. You want the only messaging that you get as a football player to be from the coaching staff. The blinders are on, right? And so what happened with the New England Patriots and winning this final game and losing the number one overall draft pick, it's not shocking in that every player that's on that field is playing to win. They're playing to win for themselves, for their families, for their teammates. They're playing to put good tape out there in the universe, if you will, for their own coaching staff, the next coaching staff. If they're free agents, the possibility and opportunity to go play somewhere else. So it's like, no one is ever going to tell a football player to go out and give 75%, find a way to lose. It's just not how it works. And the coaching staff's the same. Like, you're not going to tell Gerard Mayo, you're not going to tell Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, hey, come up with a scheme that's just not going to quite work, right?
No.
You're just not going to do it. That's why this is a top-down situation. It was a top-down situation for the New England Patriots going into Week 18, Game 17, knowing that we currently possess in our hands the number one overall pick. It's up to us to maintain that number one overall pick. We have two assets in this organization. The first is Drake May, and it's the hardest asset to find for an NFL team, finding your quarterback and getting him young. It's one thing to have a guy on a second contract where you're paying him and it's killing your salary cap. It's another to have it a rookie, and he's taking up a fraction of your salary cap because the rookie contracts and the collective bargaining agreement that occurred several years ago that put a cap on that. And so it's one thing to kind of tank a season. You think back to Major League, and we've seen it in previous years. Like, all right, let's not chew up a lot of our salary cap, which the Patriots didn't. They have the largest salary cap in the NFL. And we'll get to that in a little bit. It's another thing, Steve, to have to lose one game. That becomes trickier. But the Kansas City Chiefs did a beautiful fucking job of doing it. Yeah. I mean, did you see that list of players that did not play for the Chiefs? Right. In addition, did you watch that game against the Broncos? And I'm not saying they were purposely trying to tank, but they were purposely protecting their organization in not starting all of those players, making sure they got the rest, throwing out cover 2 and cover 3 all day long, not blitzing. Very vanilla offensive game plan. Denver just rolled through them.
Yeah, they understood the assignment. They got what they needed to do.
The organization, though, understood the assignment. It's not the 52, 53 players that were dressed playing in that game. It's not their assignment. I want to be perfectly clear. Yes, Drake May did not start. As I mentioned last week, he should not start the final game. The Patriots need this first pick, okay? But the organization didn't do enough. And by that, I mean, from the top down, Robert Kraft, the owner, the Kraft family, everyone involved at the top did not do enough to make sure they secured that number one overall pick. And you say, well, how could they have done it? Well, yeah, not starting Drake May was part of it. And obviously Joe Milton goes out and has a phenomenal game, and that adds some value. I mean, no one expected him to have one of the highest QBRs in the entire NFL season this year. Like, but if and you can't tell me during the second or third quarter of one of the better performances the Patriots had all season long, that Robert Kraft is up there writing out and typing out to his assistant, hey, let's dictate a press release. I don't like what's going on in the field. That's not what happened. The press release was written. The decision was made. Gerard Mayo was not going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots after this season. And Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, was not going to be the offensive coordinator moving forward. So why are they coaching in this game?
Right. That's the biggest question I have. I mean, why not let them go? Because again, they are even more motivated now to stick it to, maybe that's not the way of saying it, but have a great performance. They're looking for their next job. That motivation is that much higher. Why not get rid of them? I really don't understand if you're already going to make that move. And don't tell me I have a really hard time buying the fact that Gerard Mayo didn't have some kind of sense that that might be it. Don't tell me that he was coaching thinking that he was going to be there with the Patriots long term. He just living in this area. I'm in Southern New Hampshire. I'm in Patriots country. You knew from the local coverage that he was in trouble. All of the smoke, there was a lot of smoke about him not being back next year. So he had an idea that this could be it. So he's not thinking about what's best for this team long term. I look at it. You have to make that move. You have to let him go before this game, and just so this doesn't happen. This cannot.
And whoever you're putting in position, you're not saying please go out and lose the game. You're elevating someone on the staff who has an understanding that let's go out, let's play hard, let's put a product on the field that we're proud of in terms of effort. Let's give the opportunity to a bunch of young guys, maybe that haven't played in these roles as starters or
see what we got.
Sub package, and let's see what we got. This can be a very helpful game in terms of evaluating tape on who we want to keep moving forward. But let's go out there and do what the Chiefs did offensively and defensively from a scheme standpoint, so that we're seeing what we got on the field. We're giving great effort, but we're not going to go and put our most creative offensive or defensive performance on the field. I go back to this, and I want to preface it with, like, this was a rare, once in a lifetime opportunity. It was. At the time, Bryce Young appeared to be, and for a while this season, Bryce Young did not appear like he's the guy. It looked like an epic disaster for the Carolina Panthers. But, as the season progressed and he came back in as a starter, it looks like he could be their guy. But at the time, that's all that matters. At the time, Bryce Young appeared to be a really promising quarterback prospect that the Carolina Panthers thought that they could build their organization around. Okay. But it's not like it was last year's class with Caleb Williams, right? And Jaden Daniels and Drake May and even J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix and Michael Penix. But you don't have to go far back to get the most recent example of a team having the first overall pick in the Chicago Bears and what the trade value turned out to be. It was an epic haul. And I'm not saying the Patriots sitting at 1 with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward would get the identical haul. But it was a hell of a haul. And the Patriots may have, and we'll get into the quarterbacks in a minute, may have gotten a really good haul. Not same level, but a really good haul to get out of that number 1 pick. If there was a team like the Titans or the Browns or the Giants or the Raiders or the Jets or the Saints that tried to move up. And I just want to go back. And again, I'm not saying they would have gotten this, but they would have gotten a lot in all likelihood. You go back to 2023, just a couple drafts ago. The Bears move out of that number 1 spot, and they move back from 1 to 9. So they get the 9th overall pick in that 2023 draft. They get a second round selection in that draft. So now they've got two second round picks. It was the 61st overall pick, which originally was the 49ers. So now you're picking at 9 and 61. They got a first round pick in the next draft, which is 2024, and a second round pick in this upcoming draft. And yeah, it hasn't turned out to be as great as we thought at the time, but they also got DJ Moore, potentially a number 1 wide receiver. That's a lot, man. And the Patriots wouldn't have gotten that probably, but they would have swapped first rounders. They probably would have gotten like a second this year and maybe a first next year. If it was moving down like a couple spots.
Yeah, it's simple math. You're going to get more for 1 than you are going to get for 4. Like, even if it's not that haul, I mean, you just, by moving that far back, you really limit what you can get in a trade. I mean, it's just that simple.
And listen, I'm sure there are a bunch of people listening and watching who are like, get over it. Who cares? You guys live in New England. I haven't rooted for the Patriots since I was like 17 years old. Okay. Maybe 20. It's not about this. If this could have been the Cardinals, the Jets, the Giants, the Eagles, it could have been any team, and we'd be having this conversation because it's awkward. And I started this whole conversation out with, we've been in the building, not in the NFL, but in college. and high school. Like, you know how it works. No one is ever talking about, we got to find a way to lose this game. It's not how it works. But there are ways, if you know, as an organization leader in business, sports, whatever, if you know that you're not moving on with the leadership that you have hired, then why put them out there in the most important situation for building this organization moving forward?
Also, sit anyone who has so much as a hangnail. Sit them all. I know they sat Hunter Henry and Christian Gonzalez, two of their better players.
Well, Christian Gonzalez was coming off of he was in concussion protocol. But yes.
Okay. So at least, there was those, but anyone who has so much as a hangnail that is of importance to you, you sit them because you do it under the guise of, look, we need to protect these guys long-term. God forbid one of these guys goes out and gets an ACL or tears an Achilles or, something like that. We need to protect our assets going into next year. I mean, there were so many guys that I would have sat so many more players and they just didn't, they chose not to do it.
So, I mean, we can sit here and we can bash it. Listen, Robert Kraft has done a lot of phenomenal things. And like, we grew up with the Patriots before Robert Kraft was in control of all this. and like, mess. So like the utmost respect. The Krafts brought me in. I for several years did the NFL draft. For their season ticket holders. I would go down to New England in April and do a draft preview for their season ticket holders. I met Robert Kraft. It's a funny story. The first time I met Robert Kraft, I was there getting ready, all in my suit, getting ready to do a draft show and a draft event for the pre-draft event for the Patriots. And I'm sitting there, I'm cutting it up with Bruschi, right? Teddy Bruschi and I were talking. We become good friends over the years of working at ESPN together. And Robert Kraft comes up and Teddy and I are in the middle of a conversation, and Teddy sees Robert and they give each other a big hug. Hadn't seen each other in a little while. And Teddy politely introduces me. I'm not sure if you guys have met, Mr. Kraft. This is Todd McShay. He goes, "Oh no, I'm well aware of who this is." And I was like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble." Because I'm well aware who this is. And we just kind of paused, and he looked at me. He looked at Teddy. He wasn't even really looking at, he wanted to say, it was messaging. He purposely was not looking at me. He's looking at Teddy and he says, "This is the guy who's going to come in and tell us all the things we've done wrong in the draft and all the things we should do in this draft to get our fan base all upset." And I was like, "Oh boy."
Oh boy. And
Teddy jumped in to his credit and it was like, no. He's one of us. Like, puts in the work, has respect, you can trust him that he's going to do the right thing. And he kind of calmed down. And from that point on, we were good. But I'm not saying this, like, I'm not sitting here and bashing Robert Kraft and the Kraft family. I'm truly not. I'm just saying it jumped out at me. It struck a chord that if you're going to move on from leadership, it's the right thing to do so prior to. But it's not how they chose to do business. And here we are. So let's move on from this.